again, thank you for having me. Thank you for, coming to assemble, and I hope that I can impart some wisdom and make it fun at the same time. Before I had said, how does a communications major end up doing dermatology for 8 years? Well, I'm just going to go back to, I won't say what year, okay, it was 1985. And I entered the science fair, and my project, which was random, it was a diagram of the skin and all the layers of the skin. And I'm 5th grade, the skin, I don't know, what 5th grader likes the skin? Well, I did. And I won 1st place. Isn't that crazy? So guess what we're gonna talk about tonight? The skin, woo! How does that translate? Well, I don't really know. All I know is I went to USC, I got a degree in communications, I pursued acting. I almost was on a soap opera, but when that didn't happen, I realized I wanted to use my brain, make some money, and have some fun. And so I ended up getting into the pharmaceutical industry, and that's where I'm at. And I was lucky enough to actually go straight into dermatology, which means I'm a specialist. So I only call on, does everyone in here have a dermatologist? Show of hands. Everyone? A dermatologist. Okay, everybody, just show me, has everyone at least been to a dermatologist once?
Yes.
Yeah? Once? Okay, good. So what I do in my field is I'm a salesperson, but what I do is I sell my products, dermatology products, that are mostly for itchiness, fungus, dry skin, so nothing super glamorous. However, by being in the field of dermatology, I've had to learn and train about the skin. So what I want to do is kind of outline some things with A, understanding the skin, B, talking about the difference between UVA and UVB rays and how sunscreen can really help, and then C, something all the women are probably going to really love, is how to fight aging. Because I do it every day, and I'm sure we all want to learn some more tricks. So we'll go through the basics first, like I said, of sunscreen and all that in the skin, and then we'll kind of get to where, how am I going to look younger and what can I do to achieve that, okay? So first, let's start with the skin. The skin is the largest organ of the body. It actually covers approximately 20 square feet. So that's a lot if you think about it, 20 square feet, right? And you never think, when you think of body organs, you think maybe, I don't know, heart. What's another organ? Anyone? Liver, big organ, right? Gotta watch the alcohol on that one. Any other organ. So what does the skin do? It protects us from microbes. It helps regulate the body temperature. And it also it permits sensations of touch, heat, and cold. So let's talk about the skin a little bit. So the skin, everyone's skin, take out your hand, let's look at it. It's hard to believe this sucker has 3 layers, okay? The first layer is the epidermis, which is a very thin layer that's on top. The second one is the dermis, and then underneath that is a subcutis, which is the fat layer, okay? Why is this stuff important? Well, let's kind of get into, do you have a question? Or are you just showing your hand? Okay, no problem. All right, again, the skin has 3 layers. So why is sunscreen important? Does anyone know? Sunscreen? Anyone want to? Go ahead.
Protects from the UV rays.
Great, so UV.
Yeah.
Awesome, I'm glad you brought that up. What I want to do is I want to talk about the difference between UVA and UVB rays, okay? So that's great that you brought that up. So let me just erase this. Okay, actually, this is the skin here. So like I said, this is the epidermis on the top, this is the dermis, and then the subcutis down on the bottom. UVA rays, there's 90% of the rays that hit your skin are the UVA rays, okay? The UVA rays penetrate all the way to the dermis, which is right in this area. Now what happens in this area, you wouldn't believe it, but that's where you get your wrinkles and your pigmentation. And when we talk about, maybe looking younger or even feeling younger, what happens is the sun damages our skin, and in this area of the dermis, this is where we're gonna get the brown spots and the wrinkles, okay? So when it comes down to, using a SPF, you wanna get something that has both UVA and UVB. UVA rays only penetrate through to the epidermis. Actually, UVB. UVA goes all the way down to the dermis. Why is this important? This little area right here. So what happens when you go out and it's overcast and you're like, I don't need sunscreen, and you're out on a boat and it's like from 10 to 2 and then you come back and you look like a lobster? Those are the UVB rays, okay? Those are the ones that penetrate through the dermis, and those are the ones that make you super red. But what they used to think before was that the UVB rays were the ones that were the worst. The UVB rays are definitely the ones that make you red, but the UVA rays are the ones that are gonna age you and actually cause the wrinkles and all the stuff that's gonna make you age. So when it comes down to it, does anyone like have a sunscreen that they like to use? Anyone like any brand or anything that you use? Which one? Oh, Hawaiian, okay. Have you read if it's broad spectrum or not?
Not sure.
Okay, something to look into. Because even if it's blocking the UVB rays, like as we talked about in this layer of the skin, it's not maybe blocking the UVA rays. So I think that when it comes down to it, when you want to buy a sunscreen, you want something that has a broad spectrum. So we understand the difference between UVA and UVB, right? And how it ages us, right? Okay, good. So let's see. All right, so how does the UVA radiation affect us? What happens is when the rays hit the skin, they damage the cellular DNA. As we know, each cell has a DNA strand in it, right? So each cell, when it's radiated on by the sun, it changes the DNA structure of the cell. Okay, and what happens is that creates genetic mutations that lead to skin cancer. Now, this is where we're going to talk a little bit about skin cancer. I left some brochures up there. Did anyone grab some? Anyone? No?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a couple. Let's talk about anybody who has an experience. Has anyone ever had skin cancer that they would want to share? Does anyone know somebody who's had skin cancer? Anyone? Skin cancer, yeah. And I'm going to talk to you about the different types of skin cancer because I think it's really important. Like, say for instance, you go to the dermatologist. What's your dermatologist's name again? Dr. Esther. Okay, so say you go to Dr. Esther and the MA calls you and says, you have skin cancer, you're going to have to come back in. I mean, I know I would be freaked out if somebody said that to me. Would you not be freaked out? But the good news about skin cancer is that there's 3 different types and they're in varying levels of severity, okay? So the first level is a basal cell, okay? Which means B-A-S-A-L, okay? I don't know if you guys can read that or not, but basal cell is something that is a localized cancer. Most people that get a basal cell have it removed, and within the first 5 years, it's gonna come back. So just get ready for it. Most of my friends, actually I have a friend, my dad knows her, Christy, I went to college with her, only 41. However, she's simply a white girl with blue eyes, okay? I don't think any of us have to worry about that because we all have Armenian blood. So we're a little bit more pigmented than, say, the person from Sweden that has to worry about this. So my friend Christy had a basal cell on her cheek, ignored it, much to my dismay, finally called me. I said, get that checked. She went and had it checked. It was basal cell. They removed it. But the thing that I would like to talk about also with anything that occurs, basal, squamous, or what we'll get to is malignant melanoma, on the facial area, what you want to do is you want to see a Mohs surgeon. And I also left some brochures over there about Mohs surgery. Yes?
What does a basal cell look like?
Well, they look different. My friends looked like a red little spot that just never went away.
Big spot, little spot?
Well, it was big enough that it never went away. Again, it's red.
No.
Okay, so that kind of brings us to, you know, we'll go to the ABCs. Okay, we're talking about basal cell. When it comes to skin cancer, there's ABC, okay? And A means asymmetrical. So most of the time when we have like any sort of bump on our skin or something that looks wrong, most of the time it's just a mole, okay? And moles are symmetrical. Anything that's asymmetrical means like on one side it looks perfect and then on the other side it's kind of growing. So that's a sign, okay? So the first thing you want to look for, even before you get diagnosed, which we'll go over what this is you want to look over asymmetrical. okay? And I don't want anyone to get paranoid because honestly, every time I see a mole, I think I'm dying of cancer, and I'm kind of a hypochondriac, and that's why I love my job. Because I get to see 10 doctors a day, and I'm like, what is this? Everything's okay, I've had a few moles removed. So again, this is not to alarm anyone, it's just to kind of give you the guidelines of how to look at your moles. B is the borders. Again, that kind of goes along with the asymmetry. So you look at the borders of them. Sometimes like, oh, that mole, what? Oh, it looks like it's growing out, like it has a little arm, like a little octopus or a tentacle. Like those are the things that you don't want to ignore. My friend Christy, who my dad knows, who's very good friends with her, is a procrastinator. She waited 8 months, okay? So when they finally got the basal cell out, at 41 years old, she had to have Mohs surgery, and they put a Z in her face. It looked like Zorro slashed her face. Luckily, because it was a Mohs surgeon, she's already healed and everything looks really good. So again, I'm kind of going to go back to that. But the point is, like, when you see something, just go to your dermatologist and make sure everything's okay. You want to start with a baseline. Has everybody had at least a baseline examination from a dermatologist, like a body, like their full body done, a full body check? You have? No? Anyone else? What? One out of all you guys? Okay. If you have insurance, make an appointment with your dermatologist, get a baseline going, because what happens is they're gonna check every mole and just make sure you look good, and then next year you come back, and then if anything looks different, they have a chart to kind of see where you're going. Do you have a question?
If we don't have a reason, we won't get a referral from our primary physician.
Well, I guess so, but you would just say, I want to do a baseline. You say, I have a suspicious mole. How are they going to know, right? And then you get a referral, and then you can start going to your dermatologist. So, but if you don't have a suspicious mole, and again, there is a scale in dermatology, it's called the Fitzpatrick scale, and it starts from 1 to 6. 6 would be somebody from the Sudan, if you know what I'm talking about. A 1 is like an Irish person with freckles. Okay, we're somewhere in the middle because we're Armenian. So honestly, with our skin, although you do have blue eyes, but you seem like you have a little bit of caramel.
No, it's green.
Oh, they're green, but they're lighter.
Green is yellow.
Very beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
So, okay, so we've got a beautiful blue-eyed or green-eyed lady here. The point is that, you know, I think if I was talking to a Swedish organization, we could probably find some more suspicious moles than we would here, which is probably a good thing. Because honestly, this is just more so that you're aware of what could happen to you. Okay, so border. And then the last one is color. And you would ask me, what does a basal cell look like? Basal cells can range, and that's where, like, I'm not a doctor. I went to USC. I have a communications degree. I studied in this field, but you guys got to go to a doctor. If you see anything on your skin that isn't healing or looks wrong, that's for the doctor to diagnose. But you should be aware. Like my friend, she knew something was wrong, but she ignored it, because that's my friend Christy, and she was one of my college friends. Again, Dad, do we know Christy or what? She's a procrastinator. But honestly, the good thing is, because it was a basal cell, basal cells and squamous, okay? These are the first two in the categories that are what we call localized cancers, okay? Now, why is that important? Because when something's localized, it can be removed and it doesn't metastasize, okay? Now, what is the cancer that no one ever wants to hear they have? Does anyone know what they're
Melanoma.
Yes, malignant melanoma. And that's because a malignant melanoma, which I will write down, melanoma, metastasizes, okay? So that's why when I preface this, I said, say you get the call, whoever, oh, you have basal cell, you have skin cancer. Know that if somebody says basal or squamous, it's a localized skin cancer and it can be removed, and your chances of surviving are like, okay, I'm not a scientist, but 98%, okay? Because honestly, they're getting it. And if you do exactly what I said back here, which I will grab this, is the Mohs surgery. And I think that a lot of people don't know this. In the event that, say, you get anything on your face, like, I'll just bring up another example. My Aunt Aggie, which my dad obviously knows too, she thought she had an eye duct problem because her tears weren't coming out and she kept getting turned away from the doctor. Oh, don't worry, put eye drops in, blah, blah, blah. Turned out to be a squamous cell cancer growing behind her eye, into her eye, duct. That's why things are wrong. So at one point, we all as a family thought she would have to lose her eye. And it was very scary because who knew? Again, it's one of the lesser, I want to say, cancers because it's not a malignant melanoma, but because it wasn't diagnosed in time, she had to have surgery. The blessing is she actually kept her eye, and because she went to Loma Linda, they did a special treatment called proton therapy on her. And what proton therapy does, as opposed to radiation therapy will kill all the cells. And that's why people tend to get very sick and weak when they do radiation, and but proton therapy really just actually hits where the cancer is. So, like, knock on wood, I want to say, because I'm a good Armenian girl and I'm totally superstitious, my Aunt Aggie is alive and has her eye and survived that. But that's one of the things that, I think people don't think like, oh, my doctor said this, but if you ever have a gut feeling that says, God, something isn't right, don't worry if you feel like you're crazy. Go back or make another appointment, Because a lot of times doctors are just busy. I mean, I see them. I go to 10 doctors a day. They're human too. And I think it's important to know, like, if this is my health and I'm in charge of it, that maybe it wouldn't be bad if you got either a second opinion or you went back and you were just like, check this. And even if they think you're crazy, it could mean that, you don't have one of these cancers. So, all right. So that's that. Any questions on this section here?
Yes.
Yes.
What is the difference between proton therapy and radiation? Isn't it the same?
No. Proton therapy, and again, it's not like a completely scientific thing. I just know that what proton therapy does is it just targets the cancer cells. Radiation kills all the cells around it. So like, say my mom had breast cancer. When she had radiation, they were just radiating the whole area, and it made her very sick and weak. Proton therapy is just going to hit exactly where the little cancers are. So it's not going to radiate. Radiation means radiating, okay? So it kills all the cells that regenerate, but proton is more specific. And the place that I know that does it, like I said, is the Loma Linda, which is kind of far, but I mean, everyone probably lives around here, am I right? Are you guys all Pasadena people, or is anyone part of, I'm trying to think of the Kaiser, maybe? Kaiser? What about healthcare partners? Does anyone go to healthcare partners? Yeah? You do? Who are your doctors? I probably know them. Do you know Dr. Del Priori?
Dr. Maria Santos.
Oh, okay. You go to Andrea? Who said that? What? Where? Huh? Oh, okay. Anyways, okay, well, good. So you guys are all in good hands because these are all good doctors. I mean, honestly, we're so lucky. We do have really great healthcare, and sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I want it. So, now, since we've gone over, yes?
Why doctors send refer to the general radiation and we never hear the trauma radiation?
It's so specialized, honestly, that unless you had a cancer, you won't know about it. Because there's no reason to talk about it unless it's an option of a therapy for you. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, and I know about it, is because of my aunt. And I read about it too, actually. I know a little bit about it. But I know that it was successful for her. And again, the thing about cancer is, even like localized cancer, if it's left to spread, if you ignore a basal cell, eventually it will metastasize. That's what happens with cancers. And that's why early detection is so important. And that's why, in a way, everybody could benefit from having just a body check. One of the fun things that I get to do, besides pretending like I'm a doctor, which I do all the time, is going and actually following a doctor, wearing a coat, watching what they do. And I've done a few, they're called preceptorships, and I see people, they just get all nude, and they're like, what do you think this is? And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what that is. Come on in, no problem. This is the fun part too. Now we're done with talking about cancer. Unless you have any other questions, because I'm going to go into anti-aging real quick, and then everybody gets a sample for coming. So hopefully you'll like that.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Is proton treatment, is it only for skin cancer or any other cancer in the body?
I think it's for other cancers too. Again, I only know from my aunt having it from basal squamous cell. But if you want to just put it in the internet, just say proton therapy and then see what happens, because I
Okay.
don't, I can't